Yo, what's going on, Shuffle Squad YouTube? I hope you all having a fantastic day. I'm Vulcan Turtle, and I'm going to be running you guys through the late night 76 meta and top 8. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Sit back and relax. It's going to be an interesting one. So to get into the meta, we got ourselves a very interesting spread here, and you're gonna notice something. If you've watched the previous videos, you're gonna notice something quite interesting. Palkia is gone. A lot of players have decided that Palkia is not worth their time anymore, and instead has been replaced by Vikavolt. So Vikavolt is now on this list. We can see the orange late night 74's play, and late night 76 is in yellow, and we can see huge increases all around. And actually, this late night was after OCIC, and we can see a huge increase in Lugia V star play because it did place second at OCIC, and almost double the amount of play of Lost Zone Box because it placed first at OCIC for Masters. Vikavolt I do see kind of, you know, being more played and accepted because it did win, I believe, the senior section of OCIC as well. So really, all in all, it makes a lot of sense that we see these cards, these decks being played. The only card that saw a significant drop here is Lost Zone Box Rayquaza is not seeing a lot of play anymore. It's just a lot of players are opting to switch over to LZB, and it makes sense. It's a really good and efficient deck. Another deck that's growing in popularity is Regigigas, because Rahul Reddy did get 4th place at OCIC with Regis as well. So it's nice to see Reginald and the lads getting some love. But that is enough about the meta here. Let's go on to our top 8. In 8th place, we have Stark 11 with Lugia V star. This is a very straightforward kind of Lugia V star build. I will say that one of the more interesting pieces here is that we do have an Irida that is allowing us to get ourselves a Lumineon if we need it for next turn, and it can get us the option between the Lost Vacuum or the Echoing Horn. Naturally, you can get any item you want with Irida, but having access to those two tech cards is extraordinarily important depending on the matchup you're in. Now, you can get the Lost Vacuum if you need to use it on something like a big Parasol Pokemon, so you can get a huge knockout with Yveltal, or you can use that Echoing Horn in certain matchups like Arceus Duraludon, so you can get another Arceus on the bench and only have to worry about one Duraludon the entire game. So really like this build. It makes a lot of sense. It's very efficient, and it has the tech cards needed to win certain matchups that you might not normally win. So into the matchups here, we see a lot of Lost Zone Box, which the fact that Stark was able to actually like go through these things quite easily is really awesome, and I do want to attribute that it might be due to them not playing a Dunsparce. It's weird to say, right? Because you expect a lot of these Lost Zone Box decks to play electric type Pokemon. I mean, Azul did with the Zero Aura. However, when you don't have the Dunsparce in your deck, it leaves you open to adding specific tech cards that might be able to get you the win or get you extra help in certain matchups. And I personally think it's a risk, but it worked out really well for Stark with Dunsparce-less Lugia here. So great job to Stark. Congrats on your 8th place finish. Alright, 7th place, we have VictorA with Lost Zone Box with Dragonite V. This is almost the exact 60 that Azul played at OCIC. There are a few differences. We don't see the Oranguru or the Snorlax, and we don't see Sky Seal Stone. Instead, we see Forest Seal Stone, and none of the two Pokemon that I talked about when it comes to attacking. Another really interesting card that we don't see here is actually Choice Belt. So that means Zero Aura is not getting one-shots on big Pokemon like Lugia V star. So really interesting choice to not play Belt here, but it worked out really well for VictorA. Let's check out their matchups. So their matchups were actually against a lot of Lugia, where we can see that there's 2 losses in phase 1 against Lugia, and that could be attributed to the fact that they may or may not have been playing Dunsparce, so that is something to take into consideration. They may not have been playing Dunsparce, but they might have been playing Dunsparce. If they weren't playing Dunsparce, maybe that's where the cape or the belt really could have came in handy. We can see that the majority of the losses for, actually all of the losses for this deck here were against Lugia, and that's where you want to think that you can take the big W, but unfortunately it just did not work out for our 7th place player here. But congratulations on your run, and good job on placing 7th. Next up, we have Alomas with Mew V Max and Aerodactyl V star. I personally really enjoy this list. I think that this is a really fun list. I've played it before. I haven't played a lot of Mew V Max in my time. I kind of dropped it after Fusion Strike, but once I saw a build with Aerodactyl V star, I kind of wanted to try it. I'm glad I did because it's really fun and it can be really efficient, but there are some downsides, right? You know that the Aerodactyl V-Star is going to stop your opponent's Vs from having abilities. So you stop things like Lumineon, you stop things like Lugia, you stop things like Genesect in the mirror match. However, having it on the bench can end up being a liability, right? Because you do have to take into consideration that it's not a Fusion Strike Pokemon, so you lose some draw support off of that Aerodactyl V-Star, which can or cannot be a problem, really does depend. So honestly, it's not a bad list whatsoever. The Aerodactyl is just there for that Ancient Star. You do have to choose between either Ancient Star or Forest Heal Stone in certain situations, which may be easier choices in some matchups versus other matchups. So honestly, it's a really fun list. I do enjoy it, and I think it's really cool. So going into the matchups here, we see a 6-2-1 in phase 1. That's the minimum you need to get into phase 2. Unfortunately, I do want to comment on two things here. Now, we unfortunately see that the Mew V Max player here beat up Reginald in the lads. Kind of sad to see, but honestly, it happens. Reginald is obviously my favorite deck, and seeing it go down to Mew V Max hurts. But you know what? Congrats on that 7th place, because you played well. You played absolutely well. The other really interesting deck that we see here in phase 1 is the fact that they did go up against Viktor'a, where they took a loss, and that happens, right? Because Viktor'a can item lock you, and one of the main ways that Lugia V or Mew V Max is drawing a bunch of cards is using items to dump their hands so they can use those Genesects to draw. You take item lock on top of that, and also take into consideration that you might have an Aerodactyl V benched or an Aerodactyl V Star benched, where you're not drawing 6 cards, you're drawing 5, but you might only be drawing 2 or 3 based on your hand size. That's where things can get extraordinarily tricky. So honestly though, at the end of the day, congratulations to you. And why did you take a tie in round 1? Were you up against a friend? I gotta know. Were you up against a friend in round 1? That's why you took a tie? Absolutely fantastic job, and congrats on your placement. Alright, 5th place we have Marco Garcia with Gudra V-Star. Really interesting build here, right? Because we see a 3-3 line of Gudra V-Star. Normally we see a 2-3 line of Gudra V-Star. Normally we don't see Drapion V in this list, but some players are opting to play Drapion V because the Mew matchup can actually be horrendous for Gudra. I like the addition of Raihan as well, because you can start building up Gudra just a little bit quicker. 2 Temple of Sinnoh, I'm personally not a fan of. A lot of the most meta decks in the game are utilizing those special energies, and having extra ways to block them is really nice in certain situations. I do like the 2 big Parasol, and the other weird thing that I see here is 3 capture energy. Now normally with these kinds of decks we see 4-4 with water and steel, which is normal, but usually 2 or 4 capture energy, not really ever in between. So really interesting choice there, but it worked out really well for Marco because they got to 5th place. So checking their matchups here, really good job in phase 1. They took 7 wins and 2 losses, so not bad there. Their 2 losses were against a mirror match and a Lugia V-Star. In phase 2, they got themselves 4 wins, 1 loss. Again, that 1 loss being to Lugia V-Star. And in the top 8, that same Lugia V-Star that handed them an L in phase 2 gave them another L in top 8. So again though, congrats on your placement. Alright, so we have Kat Tanoga, Lugia V-Star with Pikachu V Max here. And this is actually kind of funny because when I was actually putting this slideshow together for you guys, I almost didn't have to even replace the picture, because in late night 74, 4th place was Lugia V-Star with Pikachu V Max, which was piloted by Evan Campbell. But there are just a few differences here. They don't play Hiding Dark Energy, and that's one of the big ones that I did notice. But overall, we've talked about this list before. It's very fun, very efficient. It makes a lot of sense. Drapion is there because Lugia V-Star does have a hard time in the Mew matchup. Flying Pikachu is really good because if you're making a meta call, especially after watching OCIC, you know that there's going to be a lot of decks that are just going to be basic type Pokemon. So having the Pikachu VMAX there is able to stop those basic decks from hurting you, essentially. Like, there's not much they can do unless they play, you know, Team Yellhorn and confuse you. So at the end of the day, it's a very smart play. It's a really good list, and I like it a lot. So let's check out their matchups. Their matchups were actually really interesting. We see a lot of single prize type decks, a lot of basic type decks. However, in phase 2, another really interesting piece is that we see 2 Giratinas. Now, I'm surprised Giratina isn't on our meta analysis sheet yet, but I'm sure it's going to get there soon because we've been seeing Giratina almost every video, and to see 2 in the top 8 here, or 2 in the phase 2 here, is actually kind of cool because it's not a deck that we see a lot. we do see a loss to Mew in round 13. Like I said, Mew can be a very difficult matchup because it is fast, it is efficient. Now, in top 8, take a huge win in top 8 against Marco Garcia, who was playing Gudra. Unfortunately, in top 4, taking the loss to Liam Halliburton with Lugia V. But overall, congratulations on your run and your placement. You did a great job. Okay, in third place, we have Mew V Max. Now, this is just a straightforward standard Fusion Strike Mew list. Like, you have the Meloetta there, so if you go second, you can take huge knockouts on Pokemon V. Other than that, it's just very straightforward. At this point, you've seen this list, I'm sure. Now, Lost City, obviously really good because we're seeing a lot more of those single prize lists, and a lot more of those lists coming into fruition means a lot more advantages can be taken with Lost City, because if you start getting rid of those attackers, you stop them from playing the game essentially. So overall, really good list. I think one of the weird things that I see here is that there's only 1 boss's orders and not 2. I see that they play the 4 cross switcher, but it's really unusual to see only 1 boss's orders, I think. So overall, though, it worked really well because Fabrizio Insayten, please let me know if I'm butchering your name. I really need to know, because I would hate to butcher someone's name on video. That's not cool, man. So I do apologize if I'm butchering names, but congrats on your third place here. We're going to check out your matchups, where in phase 1 you had the Mew Dream. You got 2 Mew matchups, win, Palkia, win. Poor Reginald was a win against them. Palkia was on 2 wins actually in phase 1. Going to phase 2, you had a bunch of wiggle room, taking a loss in round 10, 2 wins in 11 and 12, and then decided that 2 ties was a lot safer than playing those games because you could get into top 8, which really good assumption there, because you did get into top 8. Taking top 8, you won against Mew Mirror and then lost to Lugia V. But overall, fantastic run. Alright guys, so second place here we have Liam Halliburton's Lugia V-Star list. Now, I would say, oh, it's just standard Lugia, but it's really not, because there is a really interesting card in this that I want to touch on. Regieleki V. It's a deck that doesn't, or it's a card that doesn't see a lot of play unless you're playing Vikavolt, right? Because you can go into the V Max and that increases your attack output, but that's not what it's here for. It's here for its second attack, which says you can do 100 damage, and Regieleki V is taking 100 less damage next turn, essentially making it a 300 HP Pokemon, which is absolutely absurd. The really cool thing as well is the fact that Regieleki V is an electric Pokemon, so in mirror matches, if they're not playing Dunsparce, you are slapping for weakness, which is really cool. Soften up some Lugia V-Stars so that way you can take knockouts later on with something like, I don't know, the Archeops, the Charizard, the Stoutland, tons of ways to actually get knockouts here. So overall, really good job getting second. Let's check out your matchups here. Now your matchups in phase 1, that's the dream. That's the dream. You got 1 loss in all of phase 1, and then in phase 2, you had just enough wiggle room to take 2 losses to get in the top 8. We're in top 8. You did go up against a lost zone box where you took the W, which is huge. That could have been because you're playing Dunsparce. Maybe you're able to block off some of those Zero Auras. I don't know. But congrats there. And then in top 4, again, another mirror match, taking the W. So congrats on that. But in the finals, you lost to the mirror match. So without further ado, our first place winner, Kitnaris, Lugia V-Star. Now this is where I can say it's a standard Lugia V-Star build. Now, I don't mean that in any disrespect, it just shows how good that the deck is. However, it is just your very straightforward standard Lugia V-Star build. There's not a lot of ingenuity to this. It's very cut and dry, it's efficient, it gets the job done, and if you know how to play it, you know what you're going to do in the majority of matchups. So if anything, it's just another testament that this deck is extraordinarily good and not to be messed with and not to be disrespected, honestly, because if you do, you're probably going to have a bad time. Now let's go into the matchups here. The matchups here were actually probably a Lugia player's dream, right? So phase 1, you go up against a bunch of Mews and take a W, which usually that would be extremely difficult to do, but you found a way to make it happen. In phase 1, round 1, you went up against Vikavolt, which would normally kind of be a nightmare matchup because item locking is not fun. However, you took the huge W there, and in game 4, you took the W against Reggie's, poor Reggie's, I do feel bad for them, but I feel good that you placed first, so congrats there. Going into phase 2 though, 3 straight wins, 2 ties, because you thought it would be a lot safer to do that in order to get into the top 8, and that is 100% a good call, because you made it not only into the top 8, but you won Late Night 76. So congratulations to you, Kitnaris and Lugia V. So that is going to be the video. That is all 8 decks from Late Night 76. I want to know in the comments which one was your favorite deck. And while you're down in the comments, make sure you check out the description where you can find out how to sign up for a late night. And you guys can come and play some amazing games and try to win a free trip to Japan. Also, while you're in the description, check out our sponsors. We truly appreciate it. There's a lot of really good stuff down there for you guys, and it helps support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps us grow and helps us reach new players, so that way we can help them on their Pokemon journeys. But that is going to be it for me, and until Late Night 78, I'll see you next time.
The Shuffle Squad is proudly sponsored by Atlas Collectibles, the best place to buy any trading card game product online. Visit atlastcg.com, and at the checkout screen, make sure to use code TSS12 to save an unbeatable 12% off your entire order. Atlas Collectibles will ship your product anywhere in the world, so make sure you're taking advantage of the 12% savings with TSS12. And if Pokemon is not your thing, don't worry. Go to atlastcg.com and see all the other amazing trading card game products they have there to offer.
The Shuffle Squad is partnered with PTCGO Store to provide our community with the best access to Pokemon TCG codes. They have codes available 24/7, instant email delivery, and you can save 5% off by using code TSS5. If you're a YouTube member or Patreon supporter, you'll have access to a special code that gets you 10% off. So what are you waiting for? Use code TSS5 today and save 5% on your next order of codes on any codes available at ptcgostore.com.
Are you trying to be the best like no one ever was? Now is your time. Head on over to Metafy.gg and search out all our amazing Pokemon TCG coaches, where you can book all sorts of training plans ranging from deck help to full season sessions with your favorite coach. What a great way to up your game. Check out Metafy.gg in the description below and take your game to the next level. Challenge yourself against trainers from around the world to compete for the biggest online prizing yet.
Are you ready for an unbelievable tournament unlike anything else you've ever seen before? The Shuffle Squad is proud to announce our newest tournament series, the Late Night Event, with an amazing grand prize that's bound to have you excited.
Players can compete via play.limitless.tcg.com's online tournament platform every Tuesday to get a chance to earn weekly prizes. And every week, your placement in the tournament is tallied by points based on your best finishes to earn your rank for the Late Night Invitational event.
The series will be conducted starting February 7th of 2023 and carry all the way through to the Invitational on July 9th of 2023, where the top players will be rewarded the grand prizing.
And the grand prize is a signed jersey and photo op with the entire Shuffle Squad, as well as a fully paid trip to the Pokemon World Championships in Yokohama, Japan. This includes hotel and airfare, whether you're a player or a spectator.
Don't forget to check out all the live coverage on our YouTube and Twitch channel of the top cuts of these events for every week. And subscribe so you can get notified where to watch the Late Night Events Invitational, brought to you by the Shuffle Squad. Now get out there and start winning. We'll see you in Japan.